All right, Sagar, what are you looking at?
Well, part of what is so maddening about our current corporate media industrial complex is that it's so obvious that its power is collapsing at the same time, but they continue to maintain a powerful facade. We know with certainty declining cable news viewers. We know declining traffic to mainstream media websites, explosion of audience on independent platforms as a result of their failures. We still see them acting, though, as if it's all normal at CNN Plus when they blow $250 million on a streaming service launch. It's normal that MSNBC, CNN, Fox, despite record low viewerships, continue to hold big sway over this country, and they reap billions of dollars in profit. The reason why the system survives is because it is insular. If you never invite anyone on who is a dissident, then you will never have to contend with real failure. If you have enough money in the short term, you can use it to try and buy market share in the future, and the system's power depends on it never being challenged. That is why, every once in a while, it is shocking and exhilarating when the system actually is challenged, which by happenstance happened twice over the last few days during the Atlantic magazine's Disinformation Conference at the University of Chicago, where two freshman students challenged representatives of the mainstream media in ways that you almost never see. Let's take a look at the first question from a freshman student to Ann Applebaum of the Atlantic.
Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it. I'm Daniel Schmidt. I'm a freshman at the University of Chicago. My question is for Ms. Applebaum. So in 2020, you wrote, "Those who live outside the Fox News bubble do not, of course, need to learn any of the stuff about Hunter Biden," referring to his laptop, of course. A poll later after that found that if voters knew about the content of the laptop, 16% of Joe Biden voters would have acted differently. Now, of course, we know a few weeks ago, the New York Times confirmed that the content is real. Do you think the media acted inappropriately when they instantly dismissed Hunter Biden's laptop as Russian disinformation? And what can we learn from that in ensuring that what we label as disinformation is truly disinformation and not reality?
My problem with Hunter Biden's laptop is I think totally irrelevant. I mean, it's not whether it's disinformation or, I don't think the Hunter Biden's business relationships have anything to do with who should be president of the United States. So I don't find it to be interesting. I mean, that would be my problem with that as a major news story.
We're going to talk about more of this tomorrow in our first panel, so stand by. And I think we have run out of time.
Saved by the bell, huh? She says it's completely irrelevant. Astounding. It took me 5 seconds to find a tweet from just November of last year when Ann was criticizing Jared Kushner for cashing in on his connections made during his time in the Trump administration, which I've also criticized, by the way, and will continue on tomorrow. What's the difference, though? Well, Ann is fine with dismissing and calling the Hunter Biden laptop story completely irrelevant when it's somebody that she supports, but not when it's somebody that she doesn't. That's the problem with selective coverage and outrage. It diminishes and actually aids propagandists on the other side who can deflect with your hypocrisy to cover up their misdeeds. The only way out is to just be honest. Acknowledge your failings. Have some humility. Try to bring intellectual honesty to your coverage. But that is just simply impossible whenever you depend on the system never failing in order to propagate your career. The second challenge at the conference also came from a young student to CNN's Brian Stelter in another remarkable question. Let's take a listen.
Hi, thank you for coming. My name is Christopher Phillips. I'm a first year at the college. My question is for Mr. Stelter. You've all spoken extensively about Fox News being a purveyor of disinformation, but CNN is right up there with them. They pushed the Russian collusion hoax. They pushed the Jussie Smollett hoax. They smeared Justice Kavanaugh as a rapist, and they also smeared Nick Sandmann as a white supremacist. And yes, they dismissed the Hunter Biden laptop affair as pure Russian disinformation. With mainstream corporate journalists becoming little more than apologists and cheerleaders for the regime, is it time to finally declare that the canon of journalistic ethics is dead or no longer operative? All the mistakes of the mainstream media, and CNN in particular, seem to magically all go in one direction. Are we expected to believe that this is all just some sort of random coincidence, or is there something else behind it?
It's too bad. It's time for lunch.
You have 30 seconds.
No, I mean,
Brian.
there's a clock that says 30 seconds. But I think my honest answer to you, and I'll come over and talk in more detail after this, is that I think you're describing a different channel than the one that I watch. But I understand that is a popular right-wing narrative about CNN. I think it's important when we talk about shared reality and democracy, all these networks, all these news outlets have to defend democracy. And when they screw up, admit it. But when Benjamin Hall, the Fox correspondent, was wounded in Ukraine, the news crews at CNN and the New York Times stopped what they were doing, and they tried to help. They tried to help him get out of the country. They tried to find the dead crew members. That's what news outlets do. That's how they actually do work together, to your question about sharing those kinds of connections and trust. We don't talk about it enough, though. We don't share that reality about how that happens. And with regards to the regime, I think you mean the President Biden. The last time I spoke with a Biden aide, we yelled at each other. So that's the reality of the news business that people don't see, that people don't hear. They imagine that it's a situation that it simply is not. But I think your question, it speaks to the failure of journalism to show our work and show the reality of how our profession operates.
That man should win a medal in deflection. Also, advice to the young man who asked the question. It's better to stick to straight facts and pointed questions like that instead of editorializing. It's what allows Stelter to dismiss it as right-wing propaganda instead of reckon with all the legitimate points that he just made. But in both of those instances, you saw a glimpse of just how flimsy this entire edifice is, why it relies so much on censorship to do its bidding for them. Without the ability to cover up dissenting views, which predominantly are pointing out the failures of the mainstream establishment elite, it crumbles instantaneously, which is exactly why the corporate media, the main purveyors of the most powerful disinformation, are dead set on using disinformation standards against their opponents. And in fulfilling a prophecy, that is exactly what happened at the Atlantic's Disinformation Conference near the end, when the editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, was forced to address the two viral moments of that conference, embarrassing his attendees. Let's take a listen.
I think one darkly humorous but inevitable measurement of our success is that our disinformation conference has been the subject of disinformation campaigns on social media already. So, yeah. Congratulate yourselves for that. We'll study that at next year's disinformation.
Subject of disinformation. It's incredible. It just shows you again the power that the system has, its ability to paint anybody who reveals their failures as the real criminals. All you can do is fight back, at least reveal their lives, reveal how flimsy they are when they're pressed, and spread it as far and as wide as we can, because that is the last remaining power that a dissident has in this society. I mean, how crazy is that, Crystal? Which is that they call these kids disinformation for pointing out their own failures. Like I said,
cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.